Okay, today we're looking at meat, specifically beef, and before I actually cook anything, I'll just sort of go through some of the better cuts, or some of the cuts that are most popular, I guess, in most restaurants, and obviously the cuts that chefs particularly like to cook. As you also are probably aware that beef's a fairly versatile beast when it sort of comes to sort of the methods of cookery that you can use, and also the particular cuts that lend themselves to different sort of methods of cookery. Specifically, say for example, if you take something like beef cheeks, which are fairly popular, I mean that's a dish that you can sort of do a really nice braise with, and as a consequence of that you get a really nice tender meat, which was previously a tough meat, but once you've cooked it, like braised it really nicely, you get a nice rich sauce with it as well, plus a nice rich like stickiness to the sauce, which only enhances the overall flavour. But specifically what I'm going to do here today is just sort of go through some of the particular cuts that are most popular. And what I've got over here, this particular meat here is known as a ribeye, and as you can see the bone is still attached to it, that's kind of a giveaway in relation to the fact that that's where that particular piece of meat comes from. Another popular cut which is also available and which is quite popular in restaurants, especially around lunch times, is the T-bone. But the good thing about the T-bone is that it's got two cuts of meat in there. They've got a piece of meat in there on this particular on this side, which is known as the sirloin, and on this side we've also got the eye fillet, which is the same as this, but this has obviously been cut through. This is also known in restaurant circles as an entrecôte and a porterhouse, just this particular piece of meat here. Okay, this is what's known as a long fillet, and what the thing about the long fillet is it's probably the most expensive cut of all meat, and it's because of its tenderness and the quality of the eating of it. So for example here today, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a piece of meat from here, which I'm going to cook in the fry pan obviously, and obviously I'll do an accompanying sauce that'll go with that as well. It's broken up into, you've got the head here, you've got the main part of it, or the heart of the fillet here, and on this sort of the tail end we've got what's known as, in old times, or sort of times gone by, as a carpet bag, which is, or quite often it was used also for, say, ship and shore, or where they would make a pocket into it, and into that they might push some seafood into it. So it's sort of versatile in that way. The head in relation to this end of the beast, or the fillet, is very popular as an item that's served for two, and it's also often served as a dish known as a chateaubriand. But sometimes they just cook it by itself. They just present it as a head of fillet. Okay, now for this section in here, though, as I said, this is where all the good cuts, or the primal cuts, sort of come from in relation to, you know, say such as a nice fillet steak, or they might do a filet mignon, where that particular meat is wrapped with bacon on it, say for example. But these days they tend to do substitutes like parma or prosciutto, and lots of chefs do their own versions on it. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a piece of steak from here, but first of all I'm going to season it. What I do to season it, I normally just sprinkle a bit of a mix here of salt and pepper and a few other ingredients that I've got in here, and I just sort of put that on the board, and then I'll just take my fillet and then I'll just roll that in there like that. That way I get a good coating of seasoning on the outside, because quite often when you cut a piece of fillet you don't always season the outside. One of my preferred methods, say if I'm doing a function and I've fillet steaks on the menu, what I like to do is say take this, and I just like to fold it like that, and then I'll wrap it up, and then I will obviously season it. I'll wrap it up, I'll put it in the cold room overnight. I'll take it out about an hour, half hour before I want to cook it, and then from there I'll roast it as a whole piece. But I won't roast it all the way through. I'll roast it till it's rare, and then I remove it, and then I just cut it sometime later before service, and then I just generally cook the meat over what we call a char grill, or you can do it on just a flat grill. Okay. For this particular exercise, I'm going to take a nice piece of fillet from the centre here. And I'll just, that's about a 250, 300 gram steak. Just going to season it just on the top. Okay. And then I'm just going to push it down slightly, just to help it with the cooking time. Because it's such a thick piece of meat, the cooking time takes quite some considerable time. So I'll just get my pan on nice and on the heat. To that I'll add some oil. I don't put a lot of oil in it, I only want a small amount of oil. I'm only really sealing it on both sides, and then I'll just sort of cook it gently. I don't want to stew it, and the reason I don't want to stew it is because it's a quality piece of meat, but also for that not to occur, I need to have my pan nice and hot. So when this oil starts to smoke, I will then add my fillet steak to it, and then we'll start the cooking procedure. Okay, as I said, I'm just going to put this into this now. You can hear it sizzle. So this is what I want to do. So I keep that pan nice and hot. You'll notice that the heat's on high. I'll continue that for a short period of time. So I'll seal one side, then I'll turn it over, then I'll seal the other. Once I've sealed the other side satisfactorily, what I'll do is I'll turn the heat down to a medium heat. The best way to cook a steak really is to start on a nice hot heat, then turn it over, heat the meat all the way through, and then just reduce it slightly. Otherwise, what you tend to happen is you tend to get a lot of burn and a lot of flare up, and that's what you really want to avoid. The other thing is you don't want to burn your steak, and you don't want to overcook it too quickly, because what happens is it tends to shrink on you. So that's why you need to do it at a nice moderate heat. Okay, I'm just turning that over. I'm not going to sort of pay any particular attention here at the moment. So I'll just let this sort of go for a little bit longer. Probably give it about another 30 seconds, and then I will reduce the heat down to a medium heat. Okay. I'm just going to spin that around. Reduce that heat slightly. There we go. On average, a steak like this would probably take around about 5 minutes to cook, depending on what degree of doneness you want, obviously. So, you know, for a rare steak, you're probably looking around 4 minutes. For a medium rare, about 5 minutes, and, you know, for a medium, probably somewhere between 6 and 8 minutes. Okay. I'm just going to remove that excess oil from there. I'm going to move this to the side for a little bit. Just going to let it cool slightly, and then I'm going to add a little bit of butter to it. Because the reason I add butter to it is because I want to add a richness to the steak as well. And that richness is going to take the form of, I'm going to melt some butter, add that to the pan, and I'm also going to add some fresh herbs such as sage and thyme in this instance. I'm just going to gently stir that around. Okay. All right. The nice thing about adding butter to it, because it sort of goes a nice nut brown, it adds another dimension to your eating experience. I'm going to take the plate here now. I thought for this exercise I'd also add a little bit of Bordelaise sauce, which is basically a red wine sauce or red wine jus. And I'll just place a little bit of that on the plate. And then place that there. Move that out of the way. Okay, I'm just going to finish this off just with a nice little bit of a garnish on here just to complete the dish, and just for a bit of extra, place a little bit of butter on there to add sort of some additional richness to it, and I'll just, and there it is, and there's your finished product. Fillet steak, medium rare.